Hello, David.
Hold on a second. AirPods are not cooperating.
It's been a day of things not cooperating, David. I'm right there with you. All right, so why? Okay, there we go.
I should be able to hear you now.
Test 1, 2, test.
Yep, there we are.
Okay, good.
I have to wear my headphones.
No problem. How's everything?
All right. As you saw earlier, I had a little bit of a panic on my FileMaker Pro.
Jeez. David, question for you.
Yeah, of course.
If you open the chat, do you see a message from me?
In Zoom?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I don't see anything.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to know. So if I post something, somebody that comes in later doesn't see it.
Right.
I have to repost it. Okay.
My camera look okay? I'm using it to something different.
Yeah.
It's the camo. I'm using an iPhone.
Really? Let's see. How am I going to say this?
The little color, wonky color? Or?
No, not at all. In fact, if anything, I think the flesh tones look more flesh than washed out. I don't want to give you the impression it's a red shift. It looks great. I mean, the colors are vibrant. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll figure out
looks good.
I'm going to try. It's a 10R. I'm not using my 12, so.
Yeah. So here's what I put in the chat. Let's see if it'll paste properly. That'll be a good test. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That okay?
Yeah.
I've been getting some feedback from the audience, and it's interesting the different takes people have watching the video and listening to the audio. The audio complaints seem to be too many people talking over each other, which I can't disagree with. I mean, I've gone back and looked at things. The video people say, the jumping camera is an issue, and I agree with that completely. That's one reason I never.
Does it?
Yeah.
Zoom. Okay.
Yeah, and that's one reason I was never a big fan of Hangouts because and I was excuse me, I'm always a big fan of post-production because at least I can control it a little bit. When you're live, it jumps and you can't do a darn thing about it. So I'm going to try to introduce just a little more control. Because I also noticed that, the more people we get on here, the more fun we have, but also everybody gets passionate and excited about things. And, everybody has an opinion on everything and they want to express it. And you can't do that with 6, 7, 8 people.
Yeah.
So.
Mess around with the lights.
Yeah, that looks really good, David. It really does.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty impressed. That being this is a 10R, which doesn't have anywhere near as good a camera as 12 Pro Max does.
Yeah. Well, at some point too. I mean, with no disrespect intended, Zoom is taking whatever you feed it and scrunching it down to 1280 by 720. So,
right.
And processing it. So which they have to do.
My wife decided to print something. If you're hearing that.
Barely.
Good. Yeah, I've really gotten a crash course on Final Cut. I hadn't used it much, so now I'm going with it.
I'm curious, David, as somebody that is getting into it a little more. I felt like. Let me start over. I was only starting to learn the old version of Final Cut. And of course, a lot of people just went bananas when they switched over to this new version because it's so unlike it. But I took to it right away. It didn't. The only thing that was a little confusing, and even now I'm still kind of working on it, are the storylines.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, it's not a huge deal. And to me, it just has so many advantages and so many capabilities, and you just gotta, it's insane. It takes time. Yeah. Takes time.
Yeah. And of course I installed that plugin, and it didn't work. It had it has a thing. I thought those you probably know those plugins. It has that thing where it'll show a red box and an exclamation point saying that it didn't install. I'm like, what the heck?
Oh.
I mean, I'm like, what the heck? So, of course, their support sometimes is a little wonky. I ended up tweeting them, and then they sent me the link to their chat. So, well, it turns out you have to actually create the FX plug folder and the plugins folder in your library. It didn't create it automatically. So I had to manually create the folder, uninstall it, and then reinstall it, and then it worked.
Oh, and I've installed so many of those that I didn't even think about. I would not have even thought about that.
That's the first thing they said. I'm like, let me try this, and then sure enough.
Yeah, well, but that probably, I would guess, I don't know, but that probably would have to do with all this new security, things built into the OS.
Big Sur probably stops it from installing the library.
You can't just create a folder willy-nilly.
Yeah. Which makes total sense.
Mm.
Oh, where is buddy?
That's so how much? Yeah, well, how much snow did you end up getting?
Oh, we got a foot.
Did you?
You guys, I was thinking about you the other night when that storm heading your guys' way. What'd you guys end up getting?
Depends on exactly where you were. I think, I don't know what the official count was. I think right in my house, we got about 14, 15, 16. Yes. Some places got up northern Pennsylvania, they got more like 2 feet.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
now we got the cold coming Saturday. It's supposed to be like a high of 7.
Yep. Hearing that.
That'll be on its way to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Come on.
I was just Mark just texted. I texted him, and he said he was coming.
Yeah.
Oh, he said, "Can you send him a link to join?" I just got his text.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Andrew? Hey, I'm good.
Good to have you.
Made it.
You made it.
Yeah, we missed you last time. And you actually got your lights on.
It looks like a blast.
Yes,
I have my lights on this time.
Hey, Dave,
I got sent to
do
him.
you? Oh, you did. Thank you. Okay.
No, I can. I will.
Okay, if you will, because I don't have Twitter up on this machine.
Yeah, you got it.
So, Andrew, thanks for coming. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming. I figured
Yeah,
you might.
I couldn't pass up a security and privacy show.
Yeah,
Oh, there's Mark.
that article is from Inc. magazine that Dave and John posted. That was pretty interesting with the Tim Cook and Facebook and
That whole battle.
yeah.
Well, that may be where we start. I don't know where we're going to end up.
Yeah. Look at Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Hello,
Mark,
Mark.
you cracked me up.
Whoa.
This is like 5 minutes old.
Holy cow.
What? Oh, you got a haircut?
So
Did he have,
Wow.
So what happened was Angela's like, wait, you're gonna go do a video show now? Yeah, yes. Okay, we have to. But we had been at her office all day, and she's like, okay, we have to get back to your place right now, so I can cut your hair before you go on air. You cannot be seen with my COVID hair. So
We've been
I'm like-
seeing you with your COVID hair.
yeah.
I'm aware of that, but apparently there's a threshold. And today I found what
she
it is.
has that threshold place for you.
Yeah. So anyhow, we got back and she's like, okay, here we go. And now she's off to her next meeting and here I am.
I thought maybe it was one of the mountain lions that gotten you.
We did have a mountain lion take down a deer only a couple blocks from my place a couple days ago.
Ooh.
Yikes.
I thought maybe they took down your head.
Well, the night's still young.
Hey,
Hey,
Warren's here.
Warren.
So I haven't had a chance to check yet. What are the topics? So I can be prepared.
Privacy, security, some of the controversies that are going on with it. I don't think you'll have any shortage of opinions, Jeff.
I'm actually surprised that we're not talking about the fact that Andrew didn't realize that there's some quality rock music with flutes in it.
I did listen to a little bit of Jethro Tull now.
Oh, excellent.
Oh,
I think it sounds good.
Because it is.
this is your first time you've heard Jethro Tull?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I think his last album was recorded maybe before Andrew was born.
That was even a thought.
That is very possible.
Andrew will have to send you some remedial education, music education along the way.
Yes, please.
Dave, I have the email from you
Okay, good.
with the link for tomorrow. I
Awesome.
see it now.
Thank you.
And so, guys, I'm going to paste something. I realized David Ginsburg and I were testing this out earlier. That I put some stuff in chat that you can't see. So, if anybody else joins us tonight, you'll see me continually repeating these things. But
There'll be things like "shut up, shut up, shut up," right?
Well, Jeff, it's sort of actually. Oh, we have one more. I'll do that again. So that
I'm
comes
reading
up.
right now.
Yeah.
It is. It's everyone. Shut up.
Yeah. Hello. Whoops. He's muted. Oh, Jim, you're muted. There
I
you are.
know. Now,
There you go.
now I'm
you go.
not.
Boy, Jim's
If
making
I'm on-
a regular appearance. Love it.
Yeah.
I've
So-
got it. My watch reminds me.
Cool. So, guys, I put the rules of engagement in, and before we start the show, I've had some really good feedback from some of the listeners to the audio and some viewers of the video. And the primary comments I get for the audio are people are talking over each other, and I can't hear what's going. Oh, okay. I'll start this over again in a minute.
There's trouble.
Good evening, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Can you hear us?
Is this the part where you say you got feedback and it's that Kelly needs to be quiet?
No.
Yes.
This here.
Andrew said yes.
Because this is not, simmer down, yeah.
I'm posting the rules of engagement real quick before, because we're starting to run overtime over into showtime. I've been getting feedback. I got some really great feedback this past week from audio and video viewers and listeners. The audio folks say their biggest issue is too many people talking over each other, and that's kind of natural when you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 people in, so we need to watch that. The video people said that the camera's jumping around too much. Well, I can't control that, because every time somebody sneezes, coughs, taps the desk, the camera jumps over to them. So I'm going to ask you, if you can, to just ride your mute buttons a little bit more, so that those ancillaries, uhs, yeses, whatever, don't pull the camera away quite so often. Trying to look at it from their standpoint, which, going back and as I edit and I kind of recognize some of these. I don't think I was realizing how much it was happening. So there we go. So if people are watching in the live streams, now they how the sausage is made, and that's how it does. So let's do this. Excuse me. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to MacVoices Live. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we do this every Tuesday night. We're glad you're with us if you are here with us live, and if not, if you work or if you're in a different time zone that this just doesn't work for, we put the show in the feeds so that you can enjoy it too, but we'd love to have you come by. We do it live on Facebook, on the MacVoices page, and also on YouTube on the MacVoices TV page. So you can go there, join us, throw some comments in the chat rooms, and basically harass us from there. And as I get this started, Mr. Guy Searle is joining us. So he was a little late, so we can all make fun of him as soon as he connects to audio.
Hello.
You're late.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a cat thing.
I don't even want to know.
And you're on the wrong microphone. No, I'm kidding. You probably aren't.
You sound very low, though.
Yeah, you do sound low, Guy.
Maybe we just need to say uplifting things, and then he won't feel low.
Hard to say.
Awesome hat.
I don't think it works that way, but okay.
You look great today,
Excellent
Guy.
hat.
Have you lost weight?
I have. As a matter of fact, I'm down to about 291.
Go
What?
you.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah,
you're
you are really low, Guy. Yeah.
Make it lower so we can hear you even more.
I was kidding, but maybe you are on the wrong mic, because it sounds like you are very, very, very far from it.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
If only you had more microphones.
Exactly.
I love live shows.
That's okay. You can just start it. Let him deal with it.
Yeah.
We could mute him, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, while Guy is fixing the microphones, the topic for tonight is kind of a mishmash of privacy and security and safety and who's got your data and how did they get it and should they have it and all those kind of things. This, I have to say, this has been covered by Kelly and Andrew on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations. This has been covered by Ken Ray quite a bit. It's been covered by a lot of people. And so I've got some thoughts on it. I'm sure this group has some thoughts on it. So we're going to go around the table first to let everybody find out who's here, and then we will take it from there. So taking my screen, as always, Mr. Dave Ginsburg is up first. David, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this interesting conversation. And I got a different camera too.
You do, yes. You look. Your tones are tonier.
Yeah,
or something.
Something like that.
I don't know what that means, but
camo on the iPhone.
Andrew Orr is here, and he's got his lights turned on even. Andrew.
Hey, Chuck, I have received the bat signal.
Cool. Great. If that's what it takes, I will send it more often. Mr. Jeff Gamet has joined us, and Jeff was attacked by a mountain lion earlier and has a new look.
You should see the mountain lion.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Good to have you, Jeff.
It's
Um,
always great to be here.
Mr. Mark Fuccio, expressing no opinions whatsoever with his background, is here. Mark, good to have you.
Chuck, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Warren Sklar has joined us for the first time in a long time. Warren, it's good to have you back.
I've been snowed in for 2 days and I'm kind of losing my mind. So I need something.
So you showed up here.
So, down to our level. Welcome,
Yeah.
Warren.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll
Thank you,
maybe I'll
Warren.
get out tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
If not, think what he'll be like by next week, folks. Jim Ray is back. He can't get enough of this crew. Jim, it's good to have you. Thanks for being here.
It's fun crew.
It is. It is. Speaking of fun, Kelly Gamad is here. Kelly, good to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm always excited to come, and especially when we get people who don't show up very often. Apparently, the bat signal was we're trying to take Andrew to music school, and so here I am.
Well, yeah, that's the after show, right? That's the after show.
can attest.
Last but absolutely not least, the guy who is trying to fix his mic, Mr. Guy Searle.
Can you hear me?
That sounds more like you, Guy.
Okay, thank goodness. All right, got it fixed. Got it all sorted out, as they say. How is
Okay.
everything tonight? So we're talking about Halloween candy. I'm so glad that that's the topic tonight.
Jeez. Oh boy, here we go. So I'm going to start off and then I'm going to turn you guys loose. But the little battle of words between Facebook and Apple escalated a bit last week. And I guess the way that the thing that gets me about some of Facebook's positions, and this is not a pro Apple thing necessarily. This is just a comment on what's going on. But Facebook acts like they are entitled to our information. And this is something I've seen in the business world, completely absent the tech, that always aggravates me when somebody says, you walk into a presentation, they say, we deserve a share of your wallet. We deserve our share of your business. And right away, my hackles go up. It's like, no, you don't. You have to earn it, just like I had to earn it. And just like everybody else has to earn it. You don't deserve it. Facebook has been doing things and apologizing for them for a long time. And now they're acting like, well, gee, somebody's restricting us. And in this case, Apple with their AT&T and ATT initiative, excuse me, not the phone company. And it's like, well, you're killing our business. And it's like, well, you guys kind of built the business in a way you shouldn't have anyway. So what's the big deal? Now, before somebody says it, because some of these discussions were had in previous MacVoices too, that, we are all Apple fans to one degree or another. And so therefore we're defending Apple. And I don't feel like that. I feel like, yes, Apple stance on privacy definitely plays into Apple. But that's not a zero-sum game. That's not a bad thing. So if I'm pro-privacy, then I can be pro-Apple. If I'm pro-Apple, I can be pro-privacy. I can't be pro-privacy and be pro-Facebook. And that's kind of, I guess, boils it down. So that's my little introduction. We got a lot of ground to cover in a lot of different angles. So let's see. Mark, since you came with such an obvious opinion here, I want to lead off with you. What's your take on all this?
I agree with what you're saying, that Facebook acts like it's entitled to do all the snooping and other invasive practices that they have used to really gather an enormous amount of information. And I admit at one time I was a Facebook shareholder, but I liquidated my last position about 2 years ago. So I have no current interest in the stock. I have used or have had client companies who've used what Facebook offers. And it's truly amazing how much that they have learned and how much information they have amassed about people. And they've done it by polluting the internet with all their like buttons and things. And, they've just been really dastardly clever in terms of putting invisible iframes over web pages so that when you just see something, you click on it, boom, right away, they get a signal and they get information back to them. So, for many years, Facebook's had, just a gigantic data gathering operation, as has Google. But I think with Google, it seems to me it's a little bit qualitatively different. A lot of what Google's doing is all related to what they learn through search or your use of their other services. So at one level, I think we all understand we're making a trade-off of we'll share a little bit of information about us, ourselves with Google in return for use of free services. But Facebook has amped it up and is just so gosh darn invasive that I think they are realizing that if Apple in their ATT initiative, it could really damage what they're doing. And again, I think they're out there and they're taking what seems to me just very insincere approach of trying to justify it. Oh, we're here trying to do this to benefit small businesses, and that is horse pucky because this is a G-rated show. That's just horse pucky. And yes, so that's where they are. So I think they've certainly gotten a lot of data about people, and if people want to use their services, fine. If not, I think this is going to be a very interesting year as this discussion and debate between these two corporate giants unfold.
Andrew, I want to jump to you because you do Security Friday on TDO. So you're really, this is sort of your beat. And I'm anxious to hear, what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think there are definitely differences between the two, as Mark was pointing out. When we talk about privacy, what we're really talking about is advertising. These companies are collecting our data and selling access to it to third parties, often without our consent, which is the recent fight between Apple and Facebook. But in my opinion, there is a difference between Facebook and Google. Google is in the ad business, but they do also give us services like Gmail and YouTube and Google Drive and Google Docs and et cetera, whereas Facebook, maybe in the beginning, having a social media site was good because I believed their kind of statement when they said, we are trying to connect the world. And maybe that really was true in the beginning, but now we actually do have evidence that that's kind of not their main purpose anymore. We've had news where they're experimenting on us via the psychological things that they do with our newsfeed to, try to figure out what happens on our newsfeed and how that affects our emotions, and maybe they can exploit that. And the news about Cambridge Analytica, where all of our data is being tied to political affiliations. And so at this point, I think Facebook, I don't think they really do a lot of good anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to jump in really quick and point out that, well, really all it is just sort of a footnote to all of that, which is that Andrew and I started doing Security Friday because at some point we just needed to not talk about what the Facebook was happening during the week. And so we started going, what if we just save all the Facebook nonsense until Friday and just do like this week in Facebook stupidity or whatever. And so like sort of as a joke, we started go, well, what if we did do like this week in how Facebook is screwing you out of your data or something? And that's what turned into Security Friday, was like, we could talk about like, this is what's happening, and then figure out a way to like help people not fall into that trap. So that was where the whole thing began. So like, particularly, I'm very glad Andrew made it tonight because for this reason, because this is actually how I started. This was all part of my very long game to get him to come on the Daily Observations and talk more. Was like, I know I get him once a week because he's writing security stuff. So, but my stance on it is like, people try to put Apple and Facebook in the same sentence a lot, and they don't belong in the same sentence. They're not like, if you want to talk about tech companies that make a lot of money, okay, but their business models aren't the same. What they're in it for is not the same. What what it is they want out of people is not the same. And like, the part that I find frustrating is, like Andrew said, Facebook has been bad at handling people's data for so long. And it's not like, oops, we kept it on this one particular server that didn't have a password, or the password was admin, or, like, it's not like somebody actively got in and got a hold of a bunch of stuff they weren't supposed to have. Facebook was giving it to people. And that's a very different thing than, oh, we got hacked, oh goodness gracious me, because that's never the thing that happened. Like, Cambridge Analytica had all that data from Facebook because Facebook gave it to them, and Gmail has the Google has the information that it has about everybody because people give it to them. And and part of the reason I think that this is getting the attention it is, I hope, is for the same reason Andrew and I talk about it all the time, which is that we want people to be informed. We want people to know. We want people to understand what it is they're doing when they are very meticulous about checking in on Facebook every place they go, and very meticulous about all of these, making sure Facebook has all my information so everybody knows what I'm up to and what I'm doing and what a fabulous life I'm leading. Like, that's how Facebook makes their money. And it's just, I think it's really useful to have that conversation a bunch. And Warren raised his hand, so I'm going to stop now.
Okay, so Warren, since you raised your hand,
I just have to say it, and it's going to be quick, but what is the data that everybody's so worried that Facebook and Google is giving out? Because, they're not giving out, passwords or credit card numbers. They're not giving out, like, they're not, if I was cheating on a spouse, they're not telling the other, person what's going on. If you do something criminal, then, any company gets a warrant, including Apple, will give you that information.
Yeah.
So what is it? What is it that we're so scared and worried about, maybe our phone number, which anybody could get, things we like, who cares? I'd rather be presented with advertisements of things I like than things I don't like, if it's going to happen anyways. So that's my question. What are we so worried about?
Well, I think that's, Warren, I think that's a good, that's looking at it in a positive sense. I think that's the sense in which, Facebook and Zuckerberg et al. Are trying to offer this. But as Andrew was saying, there is a negative downside because of the amount and volume of information that they have on people. They can use
like
it
what?
to, I mean, we're talking about the whole Cambridge Analytica and the use to really highly target political messages. And I don't want to get into a political debate, pro or con, but the ability to do that on a mass scale is brand new and completely unprecedented. So
the users are doing that more than anybody else is, manipulating that. People out there are spewing out their own political nonsense rather than companies doing that.
I don't know. I mean, you may be right, but I tend to think that there's a lot of things that show in a lot of networks that for every person, that only a couple of percent, 1, 2, 3% are actively posting, and a lot of people are just silent and observers. But still, as you're going out and you're cruising the web and you're visiting different sites, or you click on different things, you're leaving footprints, and you're leaving all sorts of information about yourself. And if you don't mind that, that's fine. If you are shocked that that's happening, I think that's the nature of the debate. Is,
well, the question is still, what would you be worried about that somebody knew about you, in particular, if it came to political aspect?
I think that's inverting the question. I think the issue is not so much what are you worried about people knowing about you, but rather the other way of, what nefarious actions could people use by having access, to a vast database of
That's the question.
behavioral and other traits.
That's the heart of
about
my
people.
question too. Is
Well,
what I know people online and in my group that are like, you'll see one day you'll find out that all this is going to come back and haunt you, and I respond, okay, what's going to happen if I go through the rest of my life and die giving the internet my data that's not, again, login information, financial information, things like that, that's not stolen? What's going to happen?
So I would like to answer that, but I'm going to let Jeff Gamet go because he has something to say, and we can get back to that more. And it's a fair point, because honestly, I used to think like you do, and I've completely changed my mind. Jeff, what do you think?
All right. First off, Warren, that is the absolute best question to ask, because so many people are looking at the privacy thing as this nebulous monster out there. So before I jump into my take on that, I want to point out that Facebook's response to Apple's privacy policy changes underscores just how critical all of our personal data is to Facebook's bottom line. I mean, it's very clear from Mark Zuckerberg's response that that we are a commodity product to sell. Now, Warren, my take on the whole, oh my gosh, they've got all of my data thing isn't so much about, do they know that that I buy popcorn online on a regular basis? That in and of itself is nothing.
Useless. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a useless piece of data.
Amazon knows that. So I mean, if you buy something from Amazon, they know too. So
Right. And now when Facebook is collecting this data, the part that concerns me is that they have been able to collect so much data. It's practically insidious about the level of tracking that they do. Now, since I'm not breaking any laws, I'm not doing anything in and of itself that would warrant me freaking out about my data history. That part I don't worry about. What I worry about is what happens when you take this data en masse. Now you build a digital profile of me, and that digital profile becomes very valuable, because that profile can be used for political manipulation. It can be used for market manipulation. And then when you take all of my data en masse and you clump it together with this data from all these other people, and at this point, your profile is not anonymous. I mean, Facebook, they know who I am. They absolutely know who I am, and they know what I'm interested in all the time. It's creepy, but at the same time, I agreed to their terms of service to have a Facebook account. But anyhow, when you take all of this data en masse, now it becomes a very powerful tool. And with great power comes great responsibility. And what we haven't seen from Facebook is the responsibility that goes along with the power.
I want to jump in here with three things real quick. First of all, I want to welcome Brittany Smith to the panel. Brittany, thanks so much for being here.
Brittany.
Good to have you as always.
Thank you.
A couple comments in the YouTube chat room. Paul says, quote, "They're stealing your information," unquote. Not sure I agree with exactly stealing, but they are appropriating it without full disclosure.
Like,
Ooh.
You're
Kelly, I don't know. Your audio is weird there, Kelly. Jerry in the YouTube chat room says it's about transparency. Don't you want to know how they're using your data? And I think that's a very fair point. That
Yeah.
to sort of to Warren's question, what are you concerned about? Well, maybe I don't even know what question to ask because I don't know what they could be doing with my data. So maybe that's a question I should ask. To Jerry's point, what could you do? Guy, I see you shaking your hand unless you have a cramp.
I think
Yeah,
you
no,
would-
it was a cramp. It was a cramp.
It was a cramp.
Basically, it's not really important about what they know about individuals, because individuals, for the most part, when it comes to the level of advertising and the level of delivering a message, is not that important. It's how can you take groups of people and foment a message for them that is going to strike them on an emotional level and make them behave in a particular way that you want them to. And whether that's buying popcorn in Jeff's case, or voting for a particular candidate, or changing their opinions on, say, a water conservation bill, or what have you. When you have the level of information that Google and Facebook have on us, you can craft a message. And I know this probably sounds like rampant paranoia, but you can craft a message that can hit people not just on the right side of the brain, but on the left side of the brain, where that emotional little animal is, that isn't as cognizant of the rules of engagement. So
who's doing that?
Whoever
Has the
pays
information.
Facebook and Google to do that.
Advertisers. So advertisers could.
advertisers.
No, this isn't about buying popcorn.
So you're saying like you could change, opinions on major issues, political, and the water bill and things like that, the water company, but Mark Zuckerberg's not at the other side of the keyboard typing this,
No, he's
on your wall. Where's it coming from? Who?
Whoever it is that wants to change people's opinions on measures of the.
Someone with an agenda, and it could be a person with a political agenda. It
That-
could be
that-
someone
that's a
with a
person.
personal agenda.
Yeah, that's
it could
the
be
one-to-one
someone with
person. And they could be anywhere.
information-
As you like on Facebook when they said no more political stuff, where'd they go to that other place that shut down?
I don't know. But
So,
like,
but
it's the
other people aren't
advertising
doing that.
piece.
Okay,
Well,
one
but
at a
it's-
time, guys. One at a time.
But advertisers, yes, I fully on board. Advertisers are targeting you through Facebook,
But it's
people. People are influencing each other with other issues, and that became a problem. But
okay. But you hit the word of it, because what I was trying to say was there's more. It's not it's advertisers, but you kind of have to quote it, and it's influence. What people are able to do is manipulate Facebook for influence, because if I have an agenda that I want to change people's minds about the water bill, whatever the water measure is, water conservation measure is, that's
Right.
not necessarily political. That's just influence. I want to be able to buy ads for that person and do something because I have some sort, I have a deep vested interest in this particular water conservation thing.
I can't change what advertising you get.
No,
I can't.
but anybody can go buy ads on Facebook. That's what I mean. It's not just people who are buying ads on Facebook aren't necessarily buying ads in order to convince you to buy my thing, Warren. It's not just buy my thing, Warren. It's let me change your mind, not just let me sell you stuff. And it's
I
that extra
don't see
piece
anything
of
like
it
that.
I don't like.
You wouldn't necessarily see it, Warren. That's the whole point, especially when you consider that there's tons of fake accounts on Facebook that can be used to put out, and it's the same thing on Twitter. It's the same thing on MeWe. It's the same thing on all these social platforms where you have fake accounts that are blasting out a particular message that somebody wants out there. And that message could be anything. And
you guys have seen it. I mean, all I see is ads for things. I don't, nothing that's come off my wall saying, vote for
I want to get
whatever.
Brittany in on this.
Okay, well, just hold on. Okay, so let me jump here. More comments from the chat room, and there's some good ones. My tallest says, "What if I start looking at a lot of sites about heart disease, and that gets to my insurance company?" Jerry in the chat rooms, Jerry in the chat room says it's about steering you in a direction without you realizing it. That might be one of the most intuitive comments that we've had right there.
100%. I mean, that's what happens.
David, I want to get you in too, because one of the things that Facebook has, one of their spins right now, and I think it's fair to call it spin, is that they're looking out for the small business guy, the guy who wants to buy the targeted ads so they can get to Warren. And there's plenty of small business people that will tell you that Facebook is very effective at doing that. My response is that, yeah, of course they are, because they know more about Warren. They know that he eats Cheerios instead of Fruit Loops for breakfast. Don't ask me how they know it, but sooner or later they figured it out. So they're going to, send him Cheerios oriented ads, or ads that have resonated with other Cheerios eaters. That's a really weird example, but you get the point.
Yeah,
David, how do
because
you
that's the weirdest Facebook ad I've ever seen, is something for people who like Cheerios.
It's weird, but it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, this is not new. Advertisers have been trying to, figure out who their clientele are and who would be interested in them forever. They send, before the internet, they would send magazines or catalogs to your house because they think maybe you would like that. They might advertise in in a certain neighborhood that they think these people might enjoy my product. This is how they make money. The advertisers want to advertise to people who want to buy their stuff.
So I do have a couple more comments, and I hope these do tie into Warren's question. And this is where it gets more into the fight between Apple and Facebook. So in iOS 14, Apple introduced App Store privacy labels. And this is where developers are now required to say what kinds of data they are collecting and that may be shared with third parties. And there's this kind of joke that, well, it looks like Facebook just clicked that check all button because it's an endless list of data. But at least I think it's important that we do now have a little bit of information of what exactly they're collecting. And an upcoming privacy thing that will be included in iOS 14.5 is app tracking transparency. And I think this is what Facebook is so mad about, is that when an app wants to track you and collect your information for whatever reason, they have to ask you to do that. The system will give you a pop-up that says, this app wants to do so-and-so with your data. Do you want to allow that? And for me, at least personally, I am against this sort of thing because I just don't want my data to be used and collected by these parties without my consent. And like you said, Warren, some people are fine with getting advertising like that, and that's totally fine. But I think for me, at least, I think there should be more transparency about this is what we're collecting, this is who we're giving it to. Do you want to let them do this? Yes or no?
I'm totally cool with that. Yeah, I'm not arguing that. Yeah.
And I agree with that. I think we should have a choice. We should be able to have a choice of what we want and not want to be shared with people on Facebook. I mean,
but it's not just Facebook though.
But Facebook though, Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram. That happens on there too. I mean, we haven't really talked about Amazon much. Amazon is a little bit like that. Being that with the Amazon Echo, that they have that ecosystem. They find out about things all the time with that. I mean, it's kind of scary sometimes. So I mean, all these companies have to do a much better job of being transparent and telling us, okay, this is what we're sharing, and let us know. Facebook doesn't do that. Facebook is now that 14.5 was just released in beta. I mean, I think that's why this is all coming up to a head now, because of the fact that it's going to be going live here very, very soon, and Facebook wants to do something about it. And I don't think they're going to be able to do anything about it, because Apple is really looking out for the folks that want to have the right to have their privacy if they want to. And on Warren's point about, who cares what they have, and that's great. You have that attitude, and I'm kind of in that boat a little bit too. I'm not really too worried about what's being shared for me, but we still should have the right to not allow it if we so choose.
Jim, you haven't had a say, and I want to make sure you get in, because as somebody who manipulates data for a living through your database, you have to have an opinion on this.
Well, I don't know about because of that, and a little bit. This is really interesting conversation, the only thing I've actually used Facebook for in the last 5 years is getting links for MacVoices meetings. So I, I get on, get the link, and get off. So I guess I'm kind of leery. And Warren's comments are, question is really interesting. That's made me think. Although I kind of, I'm looking at it and it's like it's very clear that Facebook doesn't want us to know what information it has and what it's collecting. And since it like so badly doesn't want us to know, that tells me that they think
It's a red
we would be
flag.
really unhappy if we did know. And so to me, that's sort of the answer to Warren's question as well. Facebook is just desperately, we don't want you to know. And so I think, man, even if I don't know what the bad thing is, clearly Facebook thinks it's bad and that I would be displeased if I had that information. So, I would stay off. Ironically though, I use Gmail. So,
Who does?
Well,
Well, most of us do.
well, I know people
like,
that are like, oh God, no, that's terrible. You can't use Gmail. So,
well, let me
So
point out, like,
qualitatively, do you think there's a difference, Jim, between what Facebook and Google are doing in terms of collecting and how they use their data?
I don't really have a way to know. And, I started using Gmail like a long time ago, like 10
Me too.
years ago, and Adam Engst wrote a really interesting series of articles about how he used Gmail, and I was like, wow, that sounds like just what I needed. And it has been great, but it does concern me. Um, you know, and I think it's the same, like a lot of people have been on Facebook for a long time and they're like, how would I deal without it? And
mhm.
I understand that. And and probably, most of us individually, we don't have, critical, and I would think the one thing is that, Facebook knows about relationships between people and who knows who and in what way. And that seems something that's, um, potentially, and it's not just Facebook. It's like that information has it, and who knows, you know, what, Mark Zuckerberg might not always be the controller of that or the ultimate authority. The fact that that information exists, we can't just say, oh, well, what's Mark Zuckerberg? But, he could be compelled to do things.
Tim Cook could do the same thing. I mean,
Right.
Well,
any company could do that.
Anybody could. Kelly,
Yeah. Well,
you're up.
what I wanted to follow on was David pointed out the Echo ecosystem from Amazon, but I even feel like Amazon is different because Amazon's not selling that data to other people. Amazon is collecting that data for themselves because Amazon wants to be able to sell you better stuff. So Amazon like locks down all their customer information. Amazon makes very sure that like at least everything that I can find, it's very buckled up. It's very low key. And part of the reason for that is because they want that data for themselves so that they can sell to you effectively. So like if for a while I got the deal of the day emails from Amazon, and like if I went and looked something up on Amazon, like the next day or two, that same sort of thing would show up as one of the deals because like there's so much stuff on deal on Amazon on any day. And so like if I go look up doorstops or something, then like a day or two later, I'm going to get like a 3-pack of doorstops from Amazon, on sale so that I will go buy more stuff from Amazon. So like Amazon feels very transparent to me and very transactional. Like Amazon wants my information so that they can do better about getting more money from me. So I give them information, like I give them money and they give me stuff. And if I also give them information, they can direct me more accurately to the stuff that they have. And that feels like a relationship that makes sense to me. And
Manipulation.
well, yeah, but giving all that data to Facebook so Facebook can go something and maybe then like they make money, but I'm not part of that. And that part feels weird. That's what it comes down to. It's like, I don't understand my relationship with Facebook in that transaction. And it's a transaction, but I'm not really part of the benefit of that. I get no benefit from it. It's all,
You're
into the black hole of Facebook data, but I
You
don't
get
get
to use
anything
Facebook. That's
back out
what-
of it again.
that's-
Yeah, I get
That's your
Fa-
benefit. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah,
That's what you're getting. Yeah.
if that's Brittany,
Right.
get in here.
So that's what it is like, I think Amazon's even a little different than what Google is doing.
They have a
or
lot of data
Facebook
on
is
you
doing
too,
with their
though.
data. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
Brittany?
tell you what anybody's doing. I don't have proof. But I have this real expensive cognitive neuroscience and psychology degree to say what they can do. When I have enough information, I can't say I'm going to use this to manipulate Warren. I can't say I'm going to use this to manipulate Guy or Kelly. What I can say, because most of this research is done on these gross averages on a bell curve, what I can say is I want to manipulate people who share 80% of this similarity with Kelly. Will Kelly probably be in that group? Probably. And I can do these nudges. I can also do them at times when people are more vulnerable. I do think Amazon does do that. Late at night, we're more susceptible to things like impulse buying. We do not have the same self-control. And to pretend like I am this logical creature who chooses what I want to buy, that is justification. We're not logical creatures. Occasionally we can implement it, and that's awesome. And it's not a judgment, but that information absolutely can be used against you. Yes, it can be is something as extreme as voting. But I also have serious concerns about companies like 23andMe. What are you doing with this data about the fundamentals of my genetics? Because you can make huge assumptions, and I never did that test. Just enough other people who share some genes with me did it, and now you have all the information you need. Because of the way these statistics go, there is so much you can do, and I don't believe that there's such a thing as informed consent. There's only consent.
No, I'll hit. You just talked about the advertising and impulse buying. That happens all the time. People make comments on Instagram. They're scanning through their Instagram page. Oh, look at that! I can buy, and then I got to get off Instagram. I'm buying too much stuff because they're seeing that stuff that's coming up because they see what you're searching for all the time. I mean, the same thing happens on Facebook. I see Amazon ads all the time. Obviously, something I had looked at probably the day or two before, and the same thing. It's an impulse of I end up looking because it's something. Oh, this looks interesting, and then
if I show the doorstops to Kelly enough, will she eventually buy more? And I just have to catch her at just the right weak moment, and there she goes. Okay, not doorstops, but pick something Star Wars themed.
If it's a Star Wars doorstop, you're done.
Star Wars doorstop.
Yeah,
she already has
will
door
order,
keys. Just
she
saying.
will order 100 of them.
Yeah.
Is that keys or dorkies?
Brittany's only worried about them because then I'm going to text her and go, look at these little cast metal Death Stars I got to hold the doors open. Aren't they amazing?
Something that Warren, I think it was Warren brought it up earlier that I wanted to comment on. We were doing the check-ins, we were doing all this stuff, and we didn't understand the implications of it because it was fun. It was fun to, let your friends know where you were. It was fun to check in and start collecting, that I've been to all 25 burger joints in my town. And they did every little incentive. You get a badge, a burger for a badge or something. And excuse me. And we didn't understand what was happening. To David's point, I'm not sure we understood what was happening with Instagram. When brands get on there and post pictures that are really alluring. I mean, if you're Kelly and Brittany, they're Star Wars things. If you're a lot of the rest of us, they're geeky things, they're hardware. If you're Guy Searle, you post a mic, he's going to buy it. No question about it.
Yeah.
And so, and there you go. And so Warren, to your point, your comment too about magazines, and catalogs in the old days. Well, yeah. And that's where mailing lists get sold, because if I subscribe to a mailing list about glass blowing, then somewhere that's going to be of value to someone, and I'm not getting paid for it.
Yeah, but this has gone on for since the beginning of time, since the beginning of advertising. I mean, I'm sure when the first commercial came on, television in the 50s, people were like, what the hell is this? And why are they trying to sell me something? I mean, it's just, this is how, advertising works. They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. And like, I think, David was saying about the ads that come up in Facebook, or when, Kelly sees something on Amazon that she wants. This is how people think. And that was to, Brittany's point, is that's how we're programmed. We don't realize
I'm
we want
pro
something.
advertising, just for the
Right.
record. I think it
Okay.
can fund things that otherwise would never get a voice.
Right, but the thing you were worried about, before the
It's the
internet was on
manipulation.
it was on the home shopping network before the internet, right? Everybody, instead of saying I have to get off, Amazon, it was I have to stop watching the home shopping network because they're buying things at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, this is how we work.
I can be opposed to the home shopping network too, though.
But services and stores won't survive if they couldn't advertise because nobody would know about them.
I'm not opposed to advertising. Like, let me put that out there. I'm with Brittany on this. Like, I'm not against advertising, but the ad on TV is fine. The ad in the magazine that I bought because I'm interested in that, the ad they put in the comic book, that's fine because like I made that choice for that transaction. Somebody else went, I want to advertise to everyone who buys Star Wars magazine. And so I go buy Star Wars magazine and they know that there's a certain kind of person who's a Star Wars fan, for example, who bought that magazine. And now I want to advertise these things to them. And
so if you're in a Facebook group of Star Wars fans and you see a advertisement for something with Star Wars to buy, that is beneficial.
The magazine doesn't know how old I am, that I'm a woman, that I live in Oregon, that
I bet they wish they did.
That I'm on Facebook at this time, whatever. Like
the magazine does know that you live in Oregon, but
okay, that's true.
Society,
if I subscribe,
and that was a big.
And they have your address too.
Addresses is the big way that they did targeting. It's pretty much the only way that they did before this happened. But society has definitely, before all this, has had, there's been restrictions on advertising before. You can't advertise cigarettes on TV or hard liquor. So, it's not necessarily a binary thing. This is a new medium with new things, and we're working our way. What, society, never says anything goes. So yeah, clearly there's lots of advertising on social media that, it's probably a win-win, there's things, for example, like on Amazon, I can find things that I never would have found and they make my life better. But, it can't be unrestricted. And right now it's just like whatever Zuckerberg says goes, and there's no authority over him whatsoever. And society is starting to say, you know what, maybe we don't give unlimited authority to Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe we need, as a society, we got to decide some of those things through our mechanism of governance that we have for everything else.
I want to throw in Paul in the YouTube chat room says this is far greater than advertising, and I think that's one of an important point. That advertising and one thing, focused advertising, like Kelly was talking about, in a magazine or something of that nature, that's another. This is a whole lot more focused because they know a lot more about you. Has anybody? I just started reading this book last week because of this controversy. Has anybody read The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu?
That sounds perfect for me. I'll go look it up.
On Amazon.
I will put I will put a link in the show notes. This is a really, really interesting book. About half of it is historical, and kind of tells you about how we got here, and then we get into more of the modern era. So if it gets a little long in the tooth when it comes to World War I and II, just go with it because it's a good basis for where it goes. So Jeff, you've been unusually quiet with all of this. What do we do? I mean, what should we do? What can we do to protect ourselves other than just say, I'm getting off Facebook, I'm getting off Twitter, I'm getting off Amazon, I'm getting off Google?
Yeah. I mean, This is a case where the genie's already out of the bottle. So it's not like if you're going to have any sort of online presence, then you're going to be tracked, and then information is going to be used in different ways. So, I mean, you could set up a computer that's on a different network and it's running through a VPN, and you're using Tor, and you're doing everything you can to mask yourself, but that's just not realistic. So, I mean, you can limit what you're sharing intentionally, like don't check in places, and all of those quizzes that come up on your social media platforms, don't take the quizzes, and all those things that say, hey, fill this in with all the places you've been and your first pets, and don't do those things.
Yeah.
But I do want to add one thing to or loop back, I suppose, to Warren's original question, because Warren, we totally left you hanging. You asked for something tangible, and all we gave you were these nebulous they, people, them, and
we don't know. And that's the answer I got. Is I don't know what they have of me, and I don't like that, which is understandable. But
totally
nobody
fair.
said they have this on me, and this is going to come to bite me.
Okay, so I wanted to give you a tangible that we still don't know everything from, which in and of itself is kind of scary. Cambridge Analytica. And what Cambridge Analytica did was harvest data through Facebook, and then use that data to craft advertising and media, like social media content, to manipulate the perspective and decisions that voters were making. And specifically, they were using the data that they harvested through Facebook, and also through a series of the online quizzes to be able to figure out how to properly craft this message to be as effective as it could be. And that was directly involved in the campaigns of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, not this election, but the prior election, so 2016.
So I would interject here that on a lot of this, my position, I guess boils down is, people should be aware and have control over how much information they disclose. The fact that, somebody wants to sell you something or wants to influence your view on a particular candidate, that's the nature of advertising. That's been going on forever. Chuck mentioned or read the viewer's comment about The Intention Merchants by Tim Wu. Yes, we've all known that the key thing, the key value of podcast advertising is people voluntarily give their time to that show and to that host. So that's very unlike most of the mass media, where they're trying to use whatever to try to break through and just grab a tiny piece of your time. So I don't have any philosophical problems with how the data is used. My issue is it should be more of an informed consent, sort of relationship of, I'm going to disclose this, and that's that's a trade I'll make, or instead give me another trade where I can pay you money and you don't track me. So in many ways, I think that some of this just may be, and this is a hypothesis and speculation on my part, that what we've seen is from, as Jeff was saying, from the last, the 2015, 2016 election cycle, going into this one, I think Facebook unfairly is probably, the whipping boy of a lot of politicians. Ironically, both on the left and right, are critical of them for different parts of their policies that they disagree with. So to the extent that it has almost equal outcry, I'm thinking that they're probably doing a good thing. They're probably centrist. But again, I think they should just be more transparent about what data they collect and how they use it, because Google has that. Google has the ability. You can see what does Google know about me? What does Google know, and show me all the searches I've done, from the time Google just started. So to that regard, I think Google is a better corporate citizen, and Facebook and Zark Zuckerberg has been notorious of he apologizes and we just didn't do as good as we need and we'll try to do better, and he's been doing the same horsepucky nonsense for a decade in terms of just continuing to abuse people's privacy while he and his company amasses more. And with that, I pass the mic back to somebody else.
I want to get Guy in. I do want to say one thing, Mark, and that is you've said you'd like to pay somebody so that you can't be tracked. I think it'd be interesting if and Facebook did this one time in a very shady way, but pay somebody like Warren, who says he doesn't mind being tracked. Pay him for his information and then let him run rampant on the internet. That would be an interesting business model. Guy, you had some interesting points in the chat. Guy, you're muted.
You're muted, Guy. Unmute.
Sorry about that. I sneezed earlier and forgot to unmute myself. A lot of this is just smoke and mirrors. The thing is, people want to be part of a community, and Facebook and Google and so many of these other companies, they prey on this because they know people want to be part of a community. And this goes all the way back to the very beginning of the internet. What was one of the premises of saying, get on the internet because it's going to be great, because you're going to be able to talk to people all over the world, and you're going to be able to see and do all of these things that you would never be able to do regularly from your man cave or wherever it is that you set up your computer. So you go all the way back to AOL, for example. People were actually paying AOL to track data on them. And then AOL kind of faded because they never really changed their business model. And then we had the next phase, which was MySpace. And then that bled over into Facebook. And the thing is, Facebook completely mishandled this, but not in the way that you might think. Apple is doing what they can, not necessarily because they want to keep their users safe, but in their own self-interests, because the time is coming. You look at the law in the EU, the GDR, what is that? GDRP. How do you GDPR? How do you protect yourself? You protect yourself by saying, look, we're doing everything that we can. It's all of these other companies that are doing it. This is what Apple is doing. And that's great. We get a benefit from this. However, now having said that, what Facebook probably should have done was just say, oh, okay, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and we'll let people opt out of this and opt out of that. And probably 80 to 90% of the people, once being confronted with this choice, would still have hit the button to allow Facebook to gather this data. And the whole thing would have just gone away, because the people themselves who want to be part of this community, that want to know what Aunt Bertha is cooking on Sunday for dinner, they would say, oh, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care if they know that I like hot dogs with my popcorn or A&W root beer or whatever. They don't care. So we do this to ourselves. And it's not the people that are in this room right now that are greatly affected by it, because we see it. We see it, and we do what we can to protect ourselves from it. But it's the masses that just keep pushing that button. They keep pushing the button to allow themselves to be manipulated. And what can be done about it? Nothing. There's really nothing that you can do, because they'll still keep hitting that button. It's like, what was it? There was the study of the rat that was in a trap, and it was like, as long as it kept hitting this one button, it would keep getting a treat. Well, it would keep hitting that button over and over again. It didn't matter. It was going to die of obesity, because it knew every time it hit that button, it was going to get a treat. Well, that's what Facebook is. Facebook is a treat to the great unwashed masses that are out there. And they're going to keep hitting that button. And that's what Facebook should have done from the very beginning, was said, look, yeah, we're gathering all this data on you, and it's so that we can target advertising and we can do this and that. And yeah, okay, you know, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And all you have to do is just hit that button, and we won't bother you about this anymore until the next time somebody makes a point. And then, oh, here's the next button, hit this one too. And it just goes on and on.
Let's see, Jim, you're up.
Yeah, and
Next.
Guy's comments kind of tie right into actually a friend of mine texted me who's watching, and he was saying, you know, Facebook, they make their money on engagement. Their algorithm is more engagement, and it's sort of what you're saying, get people to press the button
Right.
more. And extremism keeps people more engaged, so their algorithm encourages extremism. They don't want you to not press. Their whole thing is press the button more. So what you're saying is the opposite. They want that. And, you know, so the Facebook algorithm, the goal is, you know, increased engagement at whatever cost to individuals or society, maximize engagement. So for example, if someone's like somewhat anxious about, you know, medicines, they're going to steer them to anti-vax groups. And that's, you know, so it's not so much the advertising, it's that we're going to, you know, we want to manipulate people to keep them more and more engaged. And so we're going to, you know, push them into these, you know, down these rat holes, no matter what the damage is to those people or to society.
As long as they get paid.
As long as they, yeah. So the advertising is just sort of a, you know, that's a side effect. You know, that's not the goal of it. Well, it sort of is, but I mean, you know, their engine is optimized. You know, the more people are engaged, the better they can, you know, more money they can make off the advertising. So whatever it takes to get that, you know, so that, you know, being responsible is the opposite, because what you're saying is do things that will reduce engagement. I also was thinking that this is also an area of difference between Facebook and say Google or a lot of other things. Google is not trying to get me to send more emails. You know, but Facebook is like, yeah, we would like you to spend 24 hours a day on Facebook. You know, every moment we want you on Facebook, and we're trying to do that. So, you know, Apple is not really trying to do that. Amazon is not really, you know, and again, all this is degrees. But
YouTube,
you know,
is the Google exception.
I was gonna, you know,
Okay.
that was exactly, yeah. YouTube is absolutely, and they have the same problem that they've got a extremism problem of people, you know, yeah.
Kelly, you want to get something in about it, follow up to Guy, and then we'll
I
get
do.
to Andrew.
Real quick, because Guy was talking about, like, even if Facebook asks you, people are going to hit the button and Facebook is going to do whatever they're going to do. And quite honestly, if we could rewind to when Facebook stopped being for college students and started being for everybody, if they had been upfront then and said, whatever data you give us, we're going to take that and we're going to sell it to advertisers. And then the advertisers are going to get to take that information and give you better ads. That would have been fine. My primary beef with Facebook anymore is not the creepy amount of data they want, the creepy things they do with it, the creepy way they try to collect it, the way they have profiles on every email address. Like, I have an email address that is not the email address I used on Facebook. Facebook has a profile about that email address because everybody said it was okay to upload their contacts. So there's some shadow profile for my other address that Facebook has that probably has a terrifying amount of information just based on people around me who have it. So my big beef with Facebook right now is that they are still not upfront about what they're doing with your data. And so every time we find out about the thing that happens, Facebook goes, shucky darns, I guess you caught us. We really didn't mean to, and we're never going to do it again. And we're real sorry. And that happens time after time after time after time. And quite honestly, like, it's starting to verge on an abusive relationship at this point. And I'm not saying that to be flip, but like, I'm not going to do this again. We're going to make sure, we're going to take measures. And the thing they're always apologizing for is not what they did with your data. They're sorry they got caught. They're not sorry they did something crappy with the information that they had about you. And that continues to be the stance. So if it were a thing like Google used to be, don't be evil, and now I think they've changed to they've stolen Dave Hamilton's slogan, don't get caught.
Yes.
Like
Copyright
that feels
infringement.
like, that feels like at least an upfront relationship, and I know going in. And that's the thing that I really don't like about Facebook right now, is that they continue to perpetuate this thing that they care about your privacy, and they care about leaving your data alone, and they care about the relationship they have with you. And then we keep finding out these terrible things that they're doing, and they keep going, shucks. And that's it. That's the whole, like, right now, that's my current beef with them. Like, the whole data thing aside, it's that they never own up to, we did this. We thought it was a good idea. We just get boneheaded statements out of Zuckerberg, like, data wants to be free, and of course the whole world needs to know where you are at all times, and that's why you should check in, like, no. And so, like, really, I feel like that's the rest of it, is that they're continuing to lie about their stance, about their remediation, about what they're actually doing, about what they're doing right now. And so that's really the part that I don't like.
And the people would still hit the button.
Yes. And listen, I want to make one thing real clear here, because we're beating on Facebook, and for some good reasons, because they're highly covered and they've been caught a few times. But there are a lot of other organizations that are doing it, because if there weren't other organizations that are doing it, if you're not on Facebook, you're still going to see ads popping up around the internet wherever you go, because the bots are watching what you're doing and then feeding it to the advertising agencies, who are then selling that information to advertisers, because they know that, Star Wars, Kelly and Brittany are right there. So that
they learned it by watching
let me
you,
interject.
Facebook.
Amazon learned it by watching me, and they're really good at manipulating me.
And let me interject here, because one of the new things in the new Safari on Big Sur is you can look and it will tell you how many trackers it has disabled, and people should go take a look. Click on that little shield icon and really study it. What I have observed is a lot of the media sites, publishers, they're just contaminated. They're a toxic cesspool of trackers. It's just amazing how many trackers they have.
I've seen over 50 on CNN.
Yeah,
I didn't want to name them by name, but
sorry, I lapsed out for a second.
Oh no, I didn't say they had the most, but I've seen up to and over 50 trackers every time I go to CNN.
No, I wasn't sure. Thank you. I wasn't sure who Mark was talking about.
Oh, if in Safari, and maybe I'm in a minority because I may use Safari instead of Chrome. But
I do too.
They have the feature where they have that little sort of shield, and you click on it, and it give you reports of how many trackers they've blocked in the past week, and you can drill down and you can see how many. You can see who the trackers are, and you can see how many are on each site and which ones are on each site. So the whole entire internet is basically a thing of surveillance. So it's not just, Facebook may be at the top of the pyramid, but there are many other sites that are doing exactly the same thing.
Andrew, you'd said something earlier in the chat, folks. In case you wonder what we're talking about, we have a back channel chat here in Zoom. Andrew, you brought up something about regulation that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, this could open up a whole new level of debate. But a couple of people I think have kind of hinted about this, where before the internet, we eventually came up with controls like the FCC and the 7 words you can't say in TV, and now we have something like GDPR, and so maybe it's time people start talking about. We don't have those. I don't think we have those kind of controls on the internet today. You can say those 7 words and more on these platforms, and that's free speech and censorship, but it's a It's a conversation we as a society need to discuss about, do we need more regulations for the internet, like an American GDPR? Because, like, can we trust these companies to limit themselves?
That
Apparently not.
really scares me, because the places that do have controls are places I wouldn't want to live in.
Yeah.
Like California.
No, I'm thinking North Korea, China, Iran.
Oh, that kind of control.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how sometimes you see a thing where it says, well, if you live in California, we'll let you do this thing that's in
Yeah.
your best interest. And I'm like, yeah, clearly laws are needed because only Californians can have this. And
Yeah.
mostly I don't get to say that about California.
Oh, this is really interesting. We've gone over time, but I've let it go just because I think this is an important discussion. And Warren, I can't thank you enough for, sort of asking some of those questions, because too often it's so easy to go along and just say, no, this is a bad thing. This is a bad thing. You're asking why. And I don't know if we've convinced you or whatever. I know for me personally, I used to think the way I think you are, and it didn't bother me because I'm not doing anything. And then I start to get things that are annoying to me, and I get an increased volume of them. And I realize that, yeah, there is a cost, and maybe it's too late for me, but maybe but Guy's point was really interesting too. And just give us the button. And Guy, I think you're right. I think there'll be millions of people that don't push that button, but give those of us that want the button.
But I think more people than not will hit the button.
And
I think you're using the word button differently.
Yeah. You mean to give Guy, or you mean the button to share or not to share, Guy?
The button to share, the option to share or not. Most people will hit that button to share because they want to be part of the community.
Whatever the button is, Guy can't be trusted with it.
I have no problem, and I have no problem with people knowing more and having that choice. I have no problem with I do have the problem with Facebook not being upfront with the data that they're collecting. They're scared probably to do so, and that scares us, right? Because we don't know what they collect and we're not finding out. And that all makes sense, but I haven't really got an answer. The thing that came close was Jeff's comment about the Cambridge Analytica and getting political things, kind of skewed each way. But then I got angry, and then I remembered that, every time I had the TV on, there was political commercials of people like outright lying and attacking and say their opponent kills babies and things like that. So, I mean, whatever Cambridge Analytica did was not half as bad as what they do on those political commercials. It's everywhere.
Oh, but the thing is, Cambridge Analytica and Facebook are enablers for that. I guess that's the point.
Those commercials were being done for 30 years or more. So, I mean,
there are a lot of ways to
changed.
manipulate people, and I don't like any of them.
And how did you form that opinion? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, we all manipulate people in one way or another in our daily lives. I mean, that's the way you interact with other humans. And I guess
in a predatory manner.
You're thanking him in a predatory manner?
Yeah, you're thanking me in a predatory manner.
Manipulate in a predatory manner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brittany, you put an interesting comment in the chat. Do you want to share that? Because I think that's a good one.
We were talking about data, and because I see these things from a statistical point of view, I've taken a ridiculous number of statistics in my life. And I do feel like sharing our information and our privacy, it is a little bit like wearing a mask or getting a vaccine. Yes, it's to protect us, but also the people around us, or the people who, in this case, share a certain amount of commonality with us. Knowing certain things about me and what I'm vulnerable to will also help them manipulate Kelly because of the overlap of our interests, right? And so it does feel a little bit like, what are we doing, and how does it impact not just us, but our global community?
That was not the comment I was referring to, Brittany.
Oh, which one was it?
The cheek reddening thing.
Oh, that one.
But if you don't want to say it, that's fine.
No,
But
it's fine.
But I think
Don't
you're right because
elaborate, so people wonder about the cheek reddening.
I think that's such a good point because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were
No,
doing at the time.
okay, I want to point out I was not an ADHD coach then. I did not have client information in my contacts. But when they said, "Hey, do you want to merge Facebook with your contacts?" I didn't see any opposition. I was like, "Great, you can label all these people I did a terrible job of tracking by myself." It seemed like an upside. I had no idea what I was doing, and sometimes I think about it and I just get embarrassed. And I'm sitting all by myself and like my cheeks reddened. That was the cheeks reddening thing. Yeah.
These
No.
shoes.
These ones, they redden easily.
Okay.
Thanks, Guy. I agree. I mean, that's sort of back to something I said earlier, that we didn't understand what we were sharing because, you think it's harmless until it starts to get aggregated. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Andrew, you're the security journalist here. Do you have any suggestions on what we should do at this point? I mean, recognize that okay, the dam has a hole in it. How do we start shoring up that hole?
There are definitely alternatives to a lot of these things. And we tried to talk about that, Kelly and I do, on Security Friday. And it's just little things like, I talked about, or I wrote about a couple years ago, the alternative social media platform, MeWe. And I think that was a little bit before it's gotten some attention lately.
Yeah.
There's that. There are tools like, password managers. And I wrote about today a service to create email aliases instead of maybe using Sign In with Apple. And there are just a whole other suite of tools out there.
Okay.
Like in practical terms, I would say the first thing to do is to find other ways to socialize with people that don't involve handing all your data to one place. So maybe you still interact with your family on Facebook. Maybe you interact with friends of yours in a group text message thread or iMessage thread or Signal or Telegram or something like that, so that you have other options, like for other stuff that, like for other ways that you interact with people, so that at least like there's not one place getting 100% of your data would be like at least a mitigation measure. If you feel particularly passionate about any of them in particular, I've heard that there is a Chrome extension you can install so that your news feed doesn't load when you load Facebook in Chrome, and so it doesn't show you anybody's posts or anything. You can go there, do your little one-way communication, or if you're like a person who has social media as part of your job and you need to go do the social media thing you need to do, you can do that. You never see any of those things, so you never engage any of those things. Like you don't go only like the posts about Star Wars, only like the posts about your basketball team, whatever. You don't ever have that problem because you never see any of it. So like you're messing with the algorithm because you go on Facebook all the time, but you never see any of the posts. So like there's things like that you can do if you can find other ways to communicate with people. And like right now, that's a thing that is probably harder than it used to be.
Yeah. Brittany, you wanted to put us on the couch for a minute?
Well, I mean, there's security tips to keep yourselves more secure, but there are also ways that you can work on the manipulation part of it. We're all susceptible. Everybody is. And one of the things you can do is use some of the Apple features that they have, like downtime, to make sure that you're not engaging in social media when you're more likely to be vulnerable. Another thing to watch out for is when you notice your emotional valence gets too high around anything political, because politics are boring. I don't know if you've watched any Senate debates, but they are. And so anytime they rise your emotions, it's something to watch out for, to say, hey, what's happening here? Am I vulnerable to manipulation in this moment? And just something to watch out for. But really, like, screen time is huge. Making sure I'm not on social media, I'm not on Amazon. That's my weakness. Like at these times when I'm going to be more vulnerable to these algorithms that know how to make me make impulsive choices more easily.
That is really interesting. I mean, we so often, for a lot of reasons, talk about take control of our lives, take control of this and that and the other, but that's just putting a whole different slant on it.
Yeah, late at night, early in the morning when you first wake up, these are these times that our logic brain is not functioning yet. By the way, it's the back of our brain that's the vulnerable emotional. It's actually buried inside. It's the limbic system, but it's fine. That's it doesn't really matter where it is. The metaphor works. You want to make sure you've got as much prefrontal cortex in charge. So that means you're going to be alert, already moving for the day, maybe on a break in the middle of work, as opposed to like at the end of the day, making sure you've got things like autoplay shut off. If you need screen time limits, turn on screen time limits, whatever you need to enable yourself to make your best choices when you interact with your technology.
Wow. I think we'll end there. Thank you guys. That was great. And I definitely want to thank the chat rooms for throwing in comments tonight. It's interesting to hear your perspectives as well. So let's go around. I want to make sure everyone knows where to find you when you're not here on MacVoices Live sharing all this wisdom, or as Warren has accused us in the chat room of being clones. David, I'm going to try to take I think my screen shifted, so it may be a little bit different, but go for it. Where can folks find you?
You can find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. I'm also on Mac to the Future Go live cast on Wednesday nights with Guy and Warren, and occasionally I'm on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network. And you can find me on I'm at president of the Suburban Chicago Apple Users, where Jeff's going to be joining me tomorrow in one of our events, which I'm excited about. And you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks so much. I have to say, Paul in the YouTube chat room just said, thanks, Chuck. It was good, but scary. Sorry, Paul. Jeff, where can folks find you?
With some irony, I will start with social media, Twitter and Instagram. I'm Jake Ham at both places. Anyhow, and I get around Big Show, the Mac Show, here on MacVoices Live, In Touch with iOS, and I'm forgetting a show that I just did, and I'm really embarrassed by that. Brew and Bites. I just did that, and anyhow, Google me. I am clearly very easy to find.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Good to see you.
Always great to see you.
Mr. Fuccio, I love your backgrounds each week. They just, as soon as you pop on, we start to laugh.
It's always an inspiration, to come onto the show. So easiest way to find me is at Twitter, which, unlike Google or Facebook, seems to be the weakest of the social platforms as far as having an effective advertising strategy. So that aside, best way to find me is there at Mark, M-A-R-K, Fuccio, F-U-C-C-I-O, at Mark Fuccio, all lowercase, one word. Back to you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm trying to figure out whether you just complimented or insulted Twitter. I'm not quite sure.
A little bit of both. I mean, as an investment, they're just sort of a basket case, but as a platform, there's a lot of great stuff, and it's very effective to get a lot of information if you know how to use it and and follow people. In that regard, it's I think someone said years ago, it's the central nervous system of the internet, and in that regard, it truly is. It is a very valuable resource. But as far as figuring out how to monetize it, they're worlds behind, either Facebook or Google.
Warren, no kidding. Thank you so much for coming in, for sharing your thoughts, even if you are snowed in.
No, it's great. I thought we were going to talk about the new face unlock feature with the mask, and I was all excited about that, but this is much better.
Yeah. Where can folks find you?
I do a thing. They all know where I am. If I'm on Facebook, you all know already how to get me. So I do a thing with Dave and I do a thing with Guy. And otherwise, I just spend my life listening to you guys in the car and at work. doing your thing.
Thanks, Warren. Good to see you.
No problem.
Jim Ray, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Where can we find you?
If you go to provue.com, it's spelled PROVUE.com. I will attempt to influence you to purchase RAM-based database if you have a Macintosh. If you don't have a Macintosh, then go away. And you can also find me on Twitter. I'm ProVueJim, also PROVUE. And I was wondering if anybody was going to put up here's how you can contact me on Facebook. Don't look for me on Facebook.
Mr. Guy Searle.
Yes. You can find me over my email address is guy@mymac.com. You can find me on the Twitters. I am Mac Parrot and Vert Shark. I do the Mac to the Future livecast on Wednesday nights. I do the mymac.com podcast almost every single weekend with Gazmaz. And on occasion, I will say stuff in my car and record it and also throw that off onto Facebook. So I blame Facebook.
What was that your graphics department?
Yeah, they're really, really cheap.
Yeah.
He has top men.
This is 5 cents.
Top men.
Yeah, that was strange. Thanks for being here anyway, though. It's always fun.
Sure.
Kelly, the lady with the new and favorable camera angle.
Thank you. I'm not doing it in 10 seconds this week because I have stuff to report. So here's the deal. You can find me on a recent episode of Mac Break Weekly over on the Twit Network. You can also find me over on the incomparable. Well, you can find me on the After Show, which is at aftershowpodcast.com, that I do with Mike Rose. This week's the latest episode's particularly amusing. And then you can find me over at the Incomparable, where we are in the process of spinning up a new show about WandaVision, which is called Maximoff Overdrive. And you can come listen to Don Melton and I and Lisa Schmeiser talk about episodes of WandaVision. And we've just kicked that off. That episode is currently in production right now, which means we've recorded it. And it's once again up to me to edit Don and I, but also Lisa. So you will be able to find that over at the Incomparable Network very soon.
Perfect. Thanks for being here, Kelly.
Thanks so much for having me.
Mr. Andrew Orr, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. Where can folks find you?
I'm glad I could be here. So you can find me writing for the Mac Observer, where I do end up writing about privacy and security, as well as, of course, Apple. And Kelly and I do a show, as we mentioned, every Friday called Security Friday, where we like to share the security news that happened that week. And also we try to give at least one practical tip for people. Like I said before, maybe it's just using a password manager, but it's just, we think, something good to, keep in mind and knowledge that you can use. And I am also on Twitter, and you can find me at Andrew or Not.
Great. Thanks again, Andrew. Last but absolutely not least, Ms. Brittany Smith. Brittany, thank you. This was you brought the scientific perspective into this, which I thought was really interesting, and I've not heard that done anywhere else.
Okay, I'm always happy to bring science anywhere I go. Thank you for having me.
So where can folks find you with everything that you're doing?
If you want to find me in a incredibly dangerous social media rabbit hole, on Twitter, I am the ADD Liberator. No, just ADD Liberator. I don't tweet that often or read Twitter that often because of aforementioned reasons and rabbit holes. But occasionally. And my website is conquer.consulting. And again, I wanted to plug my ADHD Guild. If you or someone else has been struggling with structure in these unprecedented times, we're here for accountability and stuff like that. And I'm really excited, and it's going to be delightfully nerdy.
Great. Folks, when Brittany tweets, you need to listen. I think that was an old slogan somewhere.
Yeah. E.F.
Thank you.
Hutton. When E.F. Hutton
Yes,
talks,
E.F. Hutton.
people
Yes.
listen.
Good for you, Kelly. Good for you.
Leave it to
Yes.
Kelly for the dated reference. I just referred to my Bluetooth stack as having been replaced with Folgers crystals recently. So yeah,
Heard it.
yeah, I'm good with the deep cut.
Olive.
I'm here for you.
Man. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices Live. We do this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'd love to have you join us, but if you can't do it live, you'll find these shows in the feeds. This one went longer. I'm probably going to break it up into at least 2, maybe even 3 parts, depending on where the conversation flows in the edit.
Oh my
But
God.
thank you so much for being here. We will see you next Tuesday, or we will see you on the next edition of Mac Voices. Thanks for watching. Congratulations, guys. That was phenomenal. No kidding. That was
That's
really
fun.
good.
You're
Yeah.
a very good moderator too.
Mhm.
Well, it's
Chuck is used to having to herd this group of kittens.
Yeah.
Only Guy broke the rules. I think if we read through the rules
Well,
again, I
Guy
think he
needs to
broke a few
fire
of
his
them.
graphics intern.
Number 2 and number 3 he broke.
So my partner was wondering when he should come over. And I was like, I don't know, we're ragging on social media. You could just join us. I know you hate them.
That's true.
that was really good. I got to tell you, the conversation went directions I did not anticipate at all.
I have so many feels about big data. So many feels. Based on science, but so many feels.
I'll be proved wrong one day, and that's fine. But listen, I agree with everything.
And I missed the whole opening, Warren. I was not wanting to pile on you in any way, shape, or form. I had no idea what was happening or that you'd asked the question.
I know I'm like one of the few people who listen. I just understand what's what you all do. I feel for them. I feel for Facebook because they're just trying to that's how they make money, and it sucks, and there's issues with it, and it's not perfect, and certainly they're not telling us everything, and we should have the option to be in and out and to know.
It's at this point, it's not going to happen, because here's the thing. We have become, as a society, used to having free internet services. So if someone came along, and the problem with creating a new social network, number one is you have to get enough people in it in order to gain some traction.
Mhm.
And you're not going to get that traction if you're telling people, well, we're not going to advertise to you. We're not going to collect data on you, but all you have to do is give us $3 to $5 a month. Well, the same people that will just keep hitting that button.
There's also a certain amount of uncertainty.
$5 a month.
And I will happily climb on Apple's back about this, and I have before, I think, on this show, is you want to feel like you understand what you're getting into. And that's part of why the free to start off is so incredibly appealing.
Yep.
If you don't have something like free trials. It's because you want to know, what am I getting into? Is anybody else there? And the free is a low barrier to entry. And you're right, like advertising does support that. And it is not necessarily problematic. My concerns are more in that Facebook in particular has been unapologetic with where their data goes and what they've done with it. And that it's not just the data. When you hear them talk about AI, you hear all of these experts talk about their legitimate concerns, and Mark Zuckerberg saying, I don't think it's a problem. And if you don't think something's a problem, you can't possibly guard against it. And so that's why I make the Skynet joke that I made in the chat, was because, like, I do think that I think there's a lack of respect for how big things can get and how problematic they can become. Whereas I do trust Google to keep on and hold on to my data because it's valuable to them. Same with Amazon. I trust them to use it for their own advertising purposes.
For their own self-interests.
For their own self-interest, absolutely. and when I talk to people about Google who are concerned, I say, look, they have very good security, not great privacy. And what I mean by that is they will use it across sites to track you and to try to serve you advertisers or try to allow other people to serve you advertisements. And that's true. But they don't have a lot of big data breaches. They don't even have a lot of Cambridge Analytica type things. They don't have that. And so when we always lump security and privacy together, that is somewhat problematic. Do I respect Apple for trying to do both? Sure, but they're not perfect either.
No.
And
you're not lumping Google and Facebook in the same group, and I think that's not true.
I mean, don't lump them together.
I think Google does pretty much a lot of what Facebook does, and they just haven't.
They have similar business models for sure, but the track record of Google that is at least become publicly aware. For all I know, they're doing all kinds of crap I don't know about.
That's my point. Do we know what you don't know what they're collecting? Just like we don't know what Facebook's collecting.
Oh no, I know they're collecting it. It's whether or not they're distributing it.
We know
they definitely are.
They
definitely are. That's what they do.
That was never in question. It was the distribution of it, because we keep finding out that Facebook says we're not distributing in this way. Okay, but I have all this data from all the places that got it from you that said this is exactly how they got it, and you say that's not what happened.
So
and I'm having a hard time reconciling this data.
We made a mistake.
Google saying
we'll
that they
do better
are
next time.
But is Google saying
we've
that
heard that
we're
shtick forever from them?
But
Google's doing the exact same thing? They're just
terrible at privacy. They're good at security. Facebook is terrible at both.
Yes,
but they're doing the same thing.
Well, Google's also good at lying.
Similar business model, but it's like saying that Android and iOS are the same because they're both smartphones you can buy, or that Huawei is the same. Each company gets to choose how they're going to handle their own issues, their own data, and what they're going to do with it. I am in the group of people, maybe there's somebody else here who has been a paying customer of Google's and seen the data. With the small numbers of people I attracted, I could tie them back if I worked at it to the original people, but we're talking about 10 people. So could I figure out who typed this particular thing based on who ended up calling me? I totally could, but I don't think big companies necessarily can do that. You can track it back, and that's one of the scary things with any kind of big data like that. But you can't do the backwards thing. That was one of the reasons that, even though some security people questioned it, that Apple introduced what was the title of it? Where they occasionally gave false information back to the servers.
Oh, yeah, the thing where it sends a generic profile
where it occasionally gives the wrong information on purpose in a randomized fashion.
Yeah.
Selective. I don't have it. It was an attempt. Whether or not it's successful, I don't know the answer. I'm not a security person. The only difference was and this sounds incredibly juvenile actually, but the attitude that I get from Facebook is different. That when something happens, and I want to be clear, we are able to connect with people from our past in a way that no previous generation has ever been able to do. And that is due to Facebook. They have done cool things by connecting people that we were never able to connect to before. Would I have any idea what on earth my cousin's up to because I have 1,000 of them? No. Sorry, I'm yelling into the mic. No, I wouldn't. Except if I go on Facebook, I can see what my cousin's doing. I can see her kids that I can't see right now in person. I can send everyone in my network pictures. There are some awesome things that they've done, and I don't want to take away from that. But I do have concerns, about what happens when too much data is gathered in one place and what can be done with it. I don't know what is being done with it, but what can be done with it.
Oh, you could,
and then the track record.
But you could give it as little information as you want. And there are people out there like that. Don't just use it to connect to the people they want to connect to and don't do anything else. And you can do that.
You can do that, but you're still giving up more information than you wanted to, because one of the things that Facebook does, like so many other sites, is they ping you, or they ask your web browser, give me data about who is connected right now. Now
Yep.
that data is what type of computer is this? What operating system is it running? What version is it running? What web browser are you using? What plugins do you have installed? What fonts are installed on this computer? Now, from that information, you can build a complete profile of someone that
From
you
that?
can now use to track. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can now use that to track a specific person. And as that person continues to do more online, you can narrow down and figure out exactly who that person is. So by doing stuff like this, you can actually never have a Facebook profile, and Facebook can have a complete profile.
And
on
totally
you.
have a Facebook profile.
And when I gave up my entire contacts to Facebook, they didn't choose to give that information to Facebook. I gave it to them for them. They had no consent in that matter whatsoever. So it's not just the information you choose to give up.
Really, really screw with their minds and just use Comic Sans for everything.
Oh my God.
But I can tell you
But
as a
it's still
technology
installed
coach,
on your system.
with
Who's
what
that
Jeff
mean
said,
to guy?
if all I know about somebody as a technology coach who's worked with a lot of people, that if all I know about you is that you have an Android phone and a Mac computer, I can tell you things about your personality with a reasonable degree of success. It's not, and that's because it's not a large number of people. But I made that joke one time when I was giving a presentation and somebody said, I'm on Android and a Mac. And I was like, oh, you're one of those. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, and I'm trying to backtrack because I don't want to get like, I blurted and I don't want to get in trouble. And I said, well, there's a tendency for people who have an Android phone and a Mac computer to be a person who cares a lot about very serious customization. And this was many years ago. And she goes, yeah, that's why I have that. But I could make other guesses about her just based on that information. And that's just me. I don't have access to big data. I've just met a bunch of people.
And that's because aggregate data tells you so much about a group of people, even if that group is like 10 people. Like aggregate data about that group of people is a terrifying amount of information. Now, what that tells you about each individual person in that group is a much smaller percentage of like the data of a person, right? But like what I can tell you about a group of people walking by who are all clumped together, who are obviously all like, a social unit, right? Like when you scale that up into hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people, like you have even more laser accuracy into certain things about that group of people once more people are involved. And, I don't know what there was a saying, maybe, I don't know, I've been reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes lately, but it was something about like groups of people, like a person is very smart and groups of people are very predictable.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I can't predict what Warren's going to do or what Guy's going to do or what Kelly's going to do.
Right.
But I can predict and slightly
Podcasters
alter.
are going to do.
Right.
Sounds like Asimov's Foundation series, Psychohistory.
Yeah.
I feel like I should do Asimov
Yes.
someday, and I haven't. Don't tell the other nerds.
It's okay.
But I think your observation about that person that used the Mac and the Android, okay, that was maybe not your first thought, but it was a thought and it was an accurate one because they acknowledged it. And so right there, they've given up some data. Now, is that going to really harm them at all? No, but to pick on Warren a little bit, just something.
I don't want to pick on Warren anymore.
Well,
Yeah, you do.
Well, not in a nasty way, but just
it's something
that is that says something about Warren. Just like we're all Mac users, so that says something about us. And for better or worse, that says
awesome.
something about us.
We're all awesome.
Yeah, we are. Awesome.
Well,
That too.
that goes
At
without
least
saying.
in our own minds.
Yes.
Taller, thinner, better looking. Yeah,
I think we just recorded after the break. I think we just recorded yet another episode of this because I think these are
And
unintentional.
I didn't even tell you
possible.
the story about my friends that horrified and offended me.
Oh,
and it wasn't
next
me.
week.
It was
We'll do it
not
next
me.
week.
Wasn't her.
Can you tell it, or is it?
Yeah, I can. So I was getting ready
We're still
for.
live. We're still
Huh?
live. We're still
Still recording.
Yeah, we're still recording and we're still live on the stream.
Oh.
So
Hey, have fun. So
That person
I
I was
have,
about to yell at, I don't want to yell at them anymore. Sorry.
you're fine, Warren. We want to hear your opinion.
Not me, not me.
So I have some friends, and I was asking them because I was trying to understand how health apps worked better on Android. I was not trying to challenge in any way, shape, or form their life choices. I just was giving a presentation on health and technology, and I was trying to understand how on earth that works on Android. And so I was talking to them, and one of them was on an iPhone, and she had sounded happy about it when we talked about it previously. She was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about going back to Android." And then she said, "But one of the things I'll miss is that my questionnaires won't give me cash anymore." I was like, "What?" Now I want to remind you, I have a cog neuro degree and I'm an ADHD coach, and what I care the most about in life is helping people make better use of their attention. Like, this is my life's mission. And they're like, "Yeah, these questionnaires we fill out." And they're like, "Yeah, we get these questionnaires and we get credit to our play accounts." And I'm like, "What? How does that work?" And they get like 10 cents for filling out these questionnaires that Google gives them. And so my immediate
Yeah.
reaction as the attention person is, "I'm sorry, you do what now? Is your time and attention worth 10 cents to you?" Like, I talk about hiring people to do jobs where I have to worry about taxes and crap. And because I can't manage all of the tasks myself, because that's too much brain energy and too much attention. And they go, and they're like, yeah, we fill it out." And then I found out what the questionnaires were. They were, "Oh, when we tracked your location to this store, what did you buy from Google?"
Oh,
wow.
For 10 cents.
For 10 cents. They're like, "Oh, it just takes
Wow.
it just takes a couple of minutes." I was like, and so at first I was offended as a attention coach on their behalf. And then I was offended as a human being on my behalf,
Wow.
because they share a lot in common with me. They just sold my information too.
Yep.
That's
For 10 cents.
Scary.
10 cents.
I'm going to shut the stream down. So, folks, if you're still in the chat room, thank you so much for being here and sticking out.
Night.
Yeah. Sleep
it's been
tight,
fun.
live stream.
Yeah. Hope
Manage your
Yeah.
attention better. That was a way better way to end.
If you're watching on Facebook,
Yeah.
Cues.
Well, I'm
Good
glad
nights.
that my office manager waited until the after show to start knocking over Lego builds and like, seriously, there's this disaster of Lego bricks all over my floor right now.
I
Good
assume
night,
that's your
stream.
cat.
See you next week.
oh,
Sorry.
Yeah, well, you
Yes.
know,
later.
yes, my office manager is a
Like-
cat.
Mm.
Chuck, adjacent to this conversation.
Adjacent to the conversation.
Yeah, well, adjacent to the Facebook privacy, your data, your stuff. A thing that I would suggest might be worth doing is sitting down with Manton Reese and maybe Gene McDonald, because they do micro.blog where everybody owns their stuff and it's paid, but it's also a social network if you want it to be. And there may be something interesting in, like, they're doing exactly the thing that everybody says should happen, is like, well, if we just had one where we paid and if I could pay for it and owned all my stuff, then I should be, then like, that's a thing that I would do. Cause if I could put my money where my mouth is and nobody cared about my data and didn't want to track me, then, if I'm paying and I get to keep all my stuff, that might be like, it might be interesting to talk to them about what their model looks like and how it's doing.
That's a
They started off right, meaning they thought about how they wanted to monetize and chose a method where people could pay and have privacy. Facebook they couldn't do that. They can't backtrack
Yeah.
from that now
No, not
because
anymore.
they went down the path of it's free, but they're going to monetize us. And if at some point,
Others have tried though, right? Didn't Apple try with Ping, or I mean, they tried something like that.
That was
Well,
before my time.
the
All I
Ping
know is
thing-
that people make jokes about it.
You missed
yeah, the Ping
nothing.
thing was a social network around music, and Apple doesn't know how to do social network.
Yeah.
Well, they
But
can't,
also, if it's only
because
around
you can't
one thing,
you can't do privacy and social network. They don't go together. You can't.
Well, I mean, going all the way back to eWorld.
can't and it
Yeah.
being really an uphill battle or slightly different, but it is an uphill battle, Warren, for sure.
I mean,
Ooh,
it-
Tom Club.
if you're paying for
sorry.
Cat.
Tom Club, if
I'm
you're paying
distracted by the
for
chat. I'm sorry, that was me.
uh,
Meow.
you
Okay, guys, I'm going to have to bag it in. So
Understood.
All right, bye,
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark.
that was fun. Great
was.
conversation. See you all.
See you, Mark.
Okay.
Take care.
We'll be in
See you,
touch.
Mark.
Yeah, see you all maybe next
Now
week.
we can talk about Mark.
Yeah. Guy, you should talk to
Oh my
Mark.
God, we've been
Man,
waiting for 2
It's not
hours.
recorded. It's not recorded. So
Guy, you should talk to
Yeah,
Mark
he
about
stopped
his
recording but kept the
about his
live
graphics
on. What's up
department.
with
It's actually
that?
still
Okay.
says we're streaming, Chuck.
bye bye.
uh,
It better not be streaming.
Says
Yes,
it is.
Says it.
Live on